Hi everyone, this is Christine with Imaginarium Cakes. I have had a lot of inquiries about doing a tutorial on how I did the bag for the bag of spinach that I made, the bag of spinach cake. And I just wanted to show you the method that I developed over the last few weeks. It's been a lot of trial and error trying to figure out the best way to get a thin sheet of plastic. Most ways I've seen it, people tend to build kind of a form around, pour in their gelatin and completely let it dry. And what I was getting with that was quite a rubbery texture, quite a thick texture, and it wasn't believable that the gelatin was actually, it didn't look enough like plastic. And what we're going for is something that behaves the way plastic does, and you can even see it gets quite brittle, this thin, but I wanted it to behave and tear and bend the way that plastic does. And the first 5 or 6 times I did it, I came out with quite a big thick rubbery sheet, and you can even see here the difference in the colorings between these two different pieces. And even that was enough that if you saw that, it doesn't really look like the bag you would find around lettuce or other greens in the grocery store. So initially what I did was make a mold, and what I found with the mold is that as soon as you take the gelatin off the backing plastic, you have a flat piece of gelatin, and that kind of defeated the point of making a giant foil mold. So what I've done in the end is just a simple method. I have a 0.5 millimeter piece of PET plastic. PET is the same sort of plastic that you will buy any of your fizzy drinks, sodas, Coke, Pepsi, anything like that. That's the sort of plastic that those products are packaged in. They are pretty much food safe, but except at higher temperatures, really high temperatures, but that's not what we're doing. So this is a safe medium to use. Whatever you do, whatever you buy, make sure you give it a really good wash first, because this is going on a cake, and the last thing we want are bits of manufacturing particles on plastic or other bits of plastic. So basically what I do when what I've done on the 2 cakes I've made is I use either the actual bag as my template, and I will lay it down underneath my plastic. I've got a bigger piece of plastic that I use that's almost the size of my whiteboard. But for this, just to show you how I do it, I've just made a smaller one. And if you don't have a bag but you know the size that you want to make, the easiest thing to do is on the back, just use some tape that you can easily see. So not Scotch tape or clear sticky tape, transparent tape, but something that you're going to see, so that you know the area that you need to get outside of when you're pouring your gelatin. So the gelatin that I used, I had to do a few different recipes. Before I started this project, I contacted Vincent, whose page is Gelatin Boss. If you guys want to see truly amazing gelatin work, you need to go check out Vincent's page, because he makes beautiful, beautiful things out of gelatin that I don't even begin to understand. So, but his recommendation was a 4-to-1 on the recipe, but I couldn't get that to work, and it didn't taste as nice to me. So I've done what I have done on my recipe is to sweeten it up is a cup of Sprite, basically, as my liquid. I've added in a bit of sugar. That's completely optional. I wouldn't go more than probably 2 tablespoons, and even then I would go less. I generally use 4 teaspoons. And I use 50 grams of gelatin, and I just used the basic powdered gelatin, which in New Zealand is this one. There are other brands. Knox brand, I think, is the one in the States. So I use 50 grams, which is 10 level teaspoons, if that helps, if you go by measurement instead of on the weight. There are lots of videos around about how to bloom your gelatin, so I won't go into all that. It's pretty basic about pouring it into the water and letting it absorb, and then heating it up and melting that gelatin until you reach a clear liquid. When I do mine, I let mine come completely back down to room temperature so that there's no heat. Part of the reason for this is that if you have it super hot when it's first done melting, you will actually warp your backing plastic, and I've done that, so don't you do that. And I also find that when it's slightly thicker and already cooled down, then I can get a thin, quick layer instead of having to wait while it sets up a bit and then pouring it off. So I know a lot of people might do this differently with the sheeting, but when I start, I simply come to the top, and as I'm pouring it on, I'm also pulling this up so that it will run down in a nice thin sheet along. And this is still a bit thick, so you need to just kind of work with it till you get used to it. This is a small area, so it's not going to take much. And normally I do this straight on the countertop. The kitchen I work out of has a stainless steel, so that's perfect. My home has a stone bench top, and that works just as well. This here is where it gets a bit tricky because you're kind of racing against the clock. If you wait too long, you're going to have a lot of streaking and thick bits. But what I have already is a nice coat. And as soon as I've done that enough times where I'm happy I've got a nice good coat, I literally just tip it up and drain it off, and I will hold that for quite some time. What will happen, what you'll see happen as this dries, is that it will be a lot thinner and therefore more brittle on this side, but don't be tempted to tip it back this way. What will happen is you will end up, it will cool, and then you'll end up with big kind of blotches of gelatin, and that kind of defeats the purpose. So once there's enough off that I'm happy, especially since it's outside where the size that I need, I actually put this in the oven on the lowest tray. I turn it on fan bake, but I keep the temperature at 0 so that the only heat that's produced in the oven is from the lights that are on. And make sure you cover this as it dries, especially if you put it in the oven or put a fan on it, because the last thing you want to do is blow dust or bits of whatever is in your oven and have it stick into your gelatin. So I have a giant fly net that I put over this, and I put it in the oven with just the fan on and the temperature 0, and this will be completely dry and ready to peel off in about 3 to 4 hours. If you don't do that and don't put any kind of fan on it, you're probably looking more overnight, maybe 8 hours. You'll just have to kind of test it and see. When it is ready, you just need to get under one end, and I always start with that thicker end. So when I'm peeling it off, I always start on the end where I pour it off. It's much easier and less likely to rip if you get under here first and then peel it off. And it will come off, at least on this plastic, as soon as you get it started around the edges, it will literally just come straight off. So just to show you how I did the bag, this is just a small piece I had left over. This has actually been sitting out for almost 2 weeks, literally just sitting out in the air. I had it pinned up with a clothespin on a board just so it was out of the way and just to see what the air would do to it. But you can still see it's very flexible. But if you're doing a bag, whatever size bag, just trim your edges down to the size that you need, and you can do that again. You can lay your piece of plastic down and trim around that, or you can use your other template to go around it. When you do turn it into a bag, the best medium I've found for gluing this is piping gel. And the reason being is that, as Vincent puts it, the water will melt the gelatin. And because this is the way it is, because the water has evaporated from it. So if you're adding it back in, it's going to want to get gooey again. So piping gel is really, really good. It has the moisture in it, but it doesn't soak in the way water would. So generally, what I do first is just put a strip down the edge. Then you fold the other edge over, and you want to fold it halfway. So if I found the midpoint, it'd be about right here. Fold this straight over to the midpoint. Fold this over. Make sure that your piping gel is completely overlapping the other flap, and press down. You may have some leakage, so don't push too hard. And then if I'm leaving that to set a bit, when it's bigger, I just have a clean dish towel that I usually just slip inside of it, just straight in, and that prevents any piping gel that's on the inside from sticking to this side of the plastic. Because if you're making a bag and you end up inadvertently gluing it shut, and then it's glued shut and you don't have a bag. So if you're doing a closed bag at the bottom, so this is just like a mini version of the spinach one. Again, just put a little bit of piping gel along the bottom, because they all have heat sealed seams at the bottom. Let this dry. Let it really stick together. And this one's small enough, it's just gonna hold together. Once it's dry, not what I'm doing, but when it's dry, just trim off the edge, so you've got a nice clean edge of your bag. Now so there, I've got a perfect little bag. I could put anything in it or attach it to a cake if I want to put, say, candies or lollies and make it look like a folded up bag. This has enough play. In order to ruffle it, you can put cuts in it, because a lot of times when you open up a bag, you tear it and you rip it down. Just use a bit of water on your fingers and literally just get the edges wet, and you'll feel how it wants to go gummy. And as it gets more and more gummy, just fold it over and make it stick to itself like this. Do that along this fold as well, because you want it to stay open. And you'll see it goes quite soft very quickly. And then I just let it sit. I get it to where I'm happy with it all the way around, and I let it sit. Now, if you were doing a big cake, so I'll show you the cake I made. This is the second one that will be for the tutorial. So we've cut it all up just so that you can actually see that there's cake. But what I wanted to show you was this back end and how you make it, and how mobile it is to squish it up. So you can make it look like it's a vacuum sealed bag and push it all in together. And the best part is that it is edible if you want to eat it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I will be putting the tutorial up on my page hopefully at the end of the week, which shows more about how I've done the lettuce and gotten it all in there, so that because it is a bit tricky just getting it inside the bag. But yeah, it takes time, but it's absolutely doable. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure, if you don't already follow me, you can find me at Imaginarium Cakes NZ on Facebook. And make sure you go give Vincent at Gelatin Boss a like. His link will be in this post as well as on Facebook. So thanks again.